Hello, my guest today is Dr. Chris Sopa, otherwise known as Dr. Chris. She is a psychologist, a speaker, an author, and a researcher of one of my most favorite topics, the human potential. Hello, Chris. How are you?
I am great. How are you, Jane?
I'm good. I'm good. I read in your bio that the road to success has not always been an easy one. You have had your ups and downs and many of your pivots. But with your experience and knowledge, what you have done is taken your life experiences and transformed them into life lessons in order to basically change our inner blueprint so that we can step into our greatness. And I am so excited to unpack this topic for our entrepreneurs out there and for all of those women who might be looking to pivot in their lives. So let me start with a question to you. What is your definition of human potential? How do you define that? And what does it mean to us in our daily lives?
Yeah, and that's such a great question because it's a loaded and packed one for sure. Because when we say potential, sometimes the other word that comes up is, oh, purpose. What is my purpose? And is my potential connected to my purpose? But the way I usually define human potential in its grander sense is really being in alignment with what you feel is best for you in every single moment. And so with that obviously comes self-awareness, but that alignment is so important. And there is question on how do I know I'm aligned? How do I feel I'm aligned? All of that, which I'm sure we're going to unpack, but human potential is being in that alignment. It's understanding that I am greater than I am expressing myself to be in this moment. And we know that in our bones, usually. Right. We end up in jobs and in relationships and in different things, because that's the other misconception is a lot of times people think of purpose and human potential in relation to a job or a career or what I do to make money. And it encompasses all parts of your life. Absolutely every aspect of your humanness, your relationships, your health, your emotions, how you express yourself. And so it's making sure on a moment to moment, day by day basis that you are in that moment aligned with what is bringing you the most joy, what feels best for you to do in that moment. If I wake up and my best is different today than it was yesterday because I might have a slight headache, then what is going to bring me joy and an alignment that day is going to be very different than maybe what it was the day before or tomorrow. And it's following that guidance that we get every moment from our bodies, because your physical bodies tell you constantly what it needs and what it doesn't need and what isn't good for it. You know, as women, we've got this great sense of intuition and tapping into that intuition and kind of knowing, you know, where you're being guided, what feels right. And really it comes down, Jane, to the emotion and that really being able to understand your feelings and what's coming up for you in the moment.
So that's really insightful, Chris, because I often hear from a lot of individuals, especially those out there who are coaching, that we want to be congruent with who we are, but then of course there goes the question of who we are. But what you're saying is first and foremost, we need that awareness of do we feel as though there's the emotion, the feel, do we feel as if we're in alignment with who we are supposed to be in our greatest self?
Yeah, because it's so true. That whole idea of, you know, being congruent with who you are, I don't disagree with that. But here is what I have found in the research and all the interviews that I have done with women and even my own coaching clients is most people don't know who they are. we don't know who we are.
True. We change too.
We do. We are very different now than we were 5 or 10 years ago. I know I can say I am. You know, every single event in my life has made me different. But, you know, most people can't even identify what they're feeling in every given moment. You know, if I ask them, you know, to do a bucket list, say, what do you want? They can't even define what they want. And all of those things make up who you say you are. Because who you think I am, Jane, may be
Mhm.
different than who I think I am. And
Right.
so the whole definition of being who you are and congruent with who you are is very organic and fluid. And it changes almost sometimes moment to moment, because every moment, you and I will be different after this interview. We
Right.
will be different people, because you'll have learned something from me. I'll have learned something from you. And just the experience, we will come out of this different. And so it's this constant question I think we need to ask ourselves of who am I in this moment? Who do I want to be in this moment? Because it's also a creation process. It's not like who you are is this concrete thing. And there's this, Chris and Jane out here in the future that we're aspiring to be, but this is a creation process. We can create whatever type of being in life we want in this moment. And that's the beauty of being human. That's that human part of the human potential.
Right. Well, I love that. That's so fascinating. And so the definition of human potential is the capacity for humans to improve themselves through studying, training, and practice to reach the limit of their ability to develop aptitude and skills. Now, knowing that, what are some of the key indicators that would let us know that we are embracing our potential? What would we be doing to know how we are feeling as a result of being aligned with our potential and actually taking action to live or realize our potential? Boy, that's really getting down to the nitty-gritty, because that would be my question to you, is how do we realize that we're living in our potential?
Yeah. So like at this moment, are you and I living up to our potential? Let's just use this moment
Okay.
in time. Okay. So for me, and I want you to do the same thing, the first thing I ask myself is, how am I feeling in this moment? And so feeling really is key. Our emotions are the language of the universe. They really are. They are the vehicle through which kind of pushes our intentions out there, because that's what holds the vibration. And so when we ask ourselves, how am I feeling in this moment while I'm being interviewed for this great summit by Jane?
Thank you.
I feel great. I feel alive. My physical body, and so here's the awareness part. My physical body feels kind of tingly with excitement. There's excitement of potential. There's this element of the unknown that's
Right.
there, which you can choose to make that fearful or have faith that that's going to be something great. I mean, faith and fear ask the same thing of us, to see it in something, to believe in something we can't see. Right. So I always choose the faith end rather than the fear end. And at the same time, there is a little bit of fear there, but if there wasn't a little bit of fear, and all of those little things that go through your mind, then I think it would be too easy. That fear isn't necessarily always a bad thing. And so when you're living your potential, there's that element and that little bit in there of, oh boy,
Right. Being on the edge.
yeah, like living on the edge. And that to
Right.
me always tells me, and I tell both of my daughters this, if you're scared to do it, then that's probably the right thing to do, because
Wow,
that
that's
fear
interesting.
tells you that, hey, you know what, this is it. If it's easy and I don't have that, because there's a lot of things, you and I have been doing what we've been doing for a long time, and there's a
Right.
lot of things I could do with my eyes closed and I could do rotely. And I've had jobs like that in the past as well that don't challenge me, and there isn't that fear element. That's a huge part of knowing that you're on that path of human potential and moving up, is having that little tiny bit of fear, because
Well,
it's that seed.
yeah, that's fascinating, because to me, that speaks loudly to all women who are looking, especially in these unprecedented times, wondering, where am I going right now? Am I going to go back to that job? Am I going to step out to try and something new or start a new business? Or what about my existing business, and how am I going to transform that in order to come through this? And
Right.
in that is what I hear is moving out of your comfort zone. And we often hear that, because when we're in our comfort zone, it's very interesting, because we're comfy. We feel like, we're relaxed, and we don't have that little edge to us. And And
Mhm.
I have to admit personally, I mean, I don't like the edge feeling, but you're right, because if you stay in that comfort zone, it's like being on your couch, the couch potato. You know, it's like, this
Right.
is great. I love it. I don't have any stress. I don't have to think about tomorrow. I don't have to plan anything. But to do it perpetually means that you're not living your full potential,
Mhm.
because you're not extending yourself to see what you can do, what you're
Right.
capable of doing, is what I like
Yeah.
to say, right?
Absolutely. And, think of comfort zone and being outside your comfort zone as more of a
Hmm.
balance. People tend to, I hear people talk a lot about comfort zone, and
Right.
yes, you have to be uncomfortable to grow. And I tell folks, be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I
And
love that. I love that. Be comfortable with being
being
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable, because you're growing when you're uncomfortable, and we all really do know the difference between that feeling of uncomfortable because you're growing. It's like that feeling when you start a new job and you're walking into the office for the first time and you don't know where your desk is and you don't know where coffee is and the
Right.
mailbox and all that. It's uncomfortable, but it's that uncomfortable, like I'm growing and this is going to be good that I'm learning this,
Right.
versus the uncomfortable that this is not good for me, that this is dangerous, this is an old pattern. We innately know the difference. And I think everybody listening knows that difference. And when we talk about being uncomfortable, it's not uncomfortable from a sense that you have to be in that state all of the time. Because that would be stressful. I mean, that's stressful just to think about it. No one wants to be uncomfortable all of the time.
Hmm.
There is a benefit of having that comfort zone as well, because it's almost like that reprieve. That comfort zone also, to me, feeds the self-esteem, because it's that part of you that you go back to, that okay, I've got this. I'm really good at this, and it
Right.
feeds your soul. So it's almost like getting up from your kitchen table and sitting down to eat. When you're sitting down to eat at your kitchen table, you're comfortable, you're feeding your body, you're feeding your soul, you're getting the nutrients you need. But at some point, you have to get up from the table and go burn those calories and do some things that are uncomfortable in order to keep growing. And
Right. Well,
so,
you would hope so anyway. Right?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
That would not be good.
I personally have not been burning more calories lately, but
Yeah. It's a little difficult right now, but it's on our
yeah.
to-do list.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you use that analogy with comfort zone and then stepping outside your comfort zone, I think that balance helps people, especially women, because we tend to be, as women, so overachieving, wanting
Right.
to do it all and be all for everybody, that we sometimes overdo that thing that we know will bring us success. And we think the more we have of it, the quicker we'll get there. And it's not quite that
Right.
way.
Right. It's the balance. Now, I want to move on to a very interesting topic that you sent to me, and it's a theory or something of that sort to do with a tennis ball. So I am just going to open it there and let you unpack that, because I was fascinated by what you said. But I thought, okay, I'm just going to hand this over to Chris and let her run with it, because I loved what it was saying, but I needed to go a little deeper. So let our audience know what that is.
Sure. And so it's really more of a context. So when you think of human potential in context, the tennis ball example is a really good way of putting it in perspective for folks, because we tend to, especially as women, we tend to be so hard on ourselves, thinking we have to be perfect all of the time and do all for everybody. And so this analogy helps. And so if I have a tennis ball, and if I'm holding the tennis ball, which I don't play tennis, by the way. I have
Okay.
taken maybe one tennis lesson in my life, and I think it was back in college for that PE credit you needed, right? And that was a long time ago. So as someone who is not a tennis player, either amateur or professional, the potential of that tennis ball when I hold it and what it can do versus, a Serena Williams, someone who is a Wimbledon professional, I do this for a living, holding the tennis ball in her hand, that potential of that tennis ball has very different potential depending on who's holding it. Okay.
Right.
And so how you unpack this whole idea is that, could I, and this is a question a lot of people ask, especially around the law of attraction, this comes up. And they ask, so if I want to be a tennis player and I want to be a Serena Williams, say that was my goal, can I do that? Can I be as good as her? Can I put forth the effort? And if I work really hard, can I do that? Well, with anything in life, could I take that tennis ball and give it more potential than it actually has at this moment with me not having any skill or any knowledge about tennis? Sure, I can feed that tennis ball more potential. But will that tennis ball ever have the amount of potential that Serena's has? Probably not, because our potential is unique to us. And this is where potential is kind of has a thread and is attached to purpose. We all have a very unique gift. And this is my belief being here. And part of that journey and that road of living up to our human potential is figuring out, what is that unique gift I bring? What is that thing that I do really well, that I lose sense of time when I'm doing it, and it brings me a tremendous amount of joy, and it's not only good for me, but good for all, good for the whole of humanity. That formula right there gives you an idea of what I'm here for. So when I'm holding the ball of human potential, speaking to large groups, doing research and affecting the human consciousness movement of the planet, that's my tennis ball. That's got some juice now, because part of what's in that tennis ball and part of what that tennis ball can do, I can make it do some things that Serena Williams then can't do as much maybe with that. Is she inspiring? Is she helping raise the human consciousness by being, a way shower, so to speak, of, hey, I'm a strong woman, I'm doing what I love, I'm speaking up for things I believe in? Absolutely. She's doing that though through tennis and
Right.
through her name in tennis, where I'm doing it from a different aspect. And so we all hold a different tennis ball, and we can't take someone else's. I can't go to Oprah and go, can I have your ball? And then I'm going to have everything you have. No, because the potential is she holds that ball. What she is bringing to it and meeting kind of in the middle for that potential. Here's the ball. Here's what Oprah brings. That's what brings it life. And so that's the whole idea of the tennis ball context and analogy.
Well, that's fascinating. I love the metaphor, because as I understand it from what you just said, the tennis ball is your potential, or you feed it your potential to make it your own,
right?
Because everyone is different. So the like you said, in someone else's hands, it becomes something else. So that I really enjoyed that. Thank you. So how do we stop the mind chatter? Here's a really interesting topic. There's been a lot of this topic in reference to, it's maybe the ego, or it's the negative self. But we really, the monkey mind that keeps us small and prevents us from stepping into our potential. Maybe you could speak a little on that, because I know we could all use some advice in that area right now.
Yeah, and that's lately, I think we've had a lot of mind chatter. There's so many things we read, and you should be doing this and should be doing that. I feel like because we have more time, we should be filling it with different things, which time does not always need to be filled. I just wrote a blog on that, actually, because I think that's
fascinating
for people that, I've got all this time now, I need to fill it with something. And it's, we're human beings, not human doings. And it's a constant reminder. I even have to remind myself, I'm here to be.
Myself as well.
Yeah, I'm not
especially
a human
women,
doing.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that mind chatter, the monkey mind, whatever you want to call it, the little gremlins, everyone has a term for it. That's challenging, because again, we start with the self-awareness, and you have to be aware of those limiting beliefs is what I like to call them. And even the old thoughts and patterns that sometimes come from parents and from society and from old jobs and teachers and grandparents. I mean, you name it, our brain has been filled with a lot of beliefs, and 95% of our behaviors and our beliefs come from our subconscious, and our subconscious expresses itself through our behaviors. And so one of the best ways to start to become aware of some of those phrases and the limiting beliefs and that chatter that you have is to watch yourself, watch your behaviors, pay attention to how you feel. So one of the things I do with my clients is, in order to start to become a little bit more aware, because you have to be aware of it in order to change it. You know, we have so many things that run through our mind, especially as women, that we're not even aware of, that we think over and over, that affect our feelings, that affect our behaviors. And so if we monitored our thoughts all of the time, that would be near impossible, because we have thousands of them a day.
Oh, and we would go crazy.
We
would
drive
go ourselves.
That would be all we would do, right? Is write down what we thought we had.
Be immobilized. We'd be on the couch.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so I have people watch their feelings, because most of the time we are very aware if our feelings shift quickly. Right. You know, we've had that experience where, I know I have, where you're going about your day and everything is fine, and then all of a sudden you feel annoyed or frustrated for some reason. And we've all had that experience. We're like, what just happened?
Right.
And those are the moments to stop, because something triggered that in your environment. And it's a moment to stop. And the first thing you do is you identify what you're feeling, which sounds so much easier than it actually is. You know, we're all very familiar with, oh, I know how it feels to be happy and how it feels to be angry, you know, some of the basic ones. But when you really get down to it, it's hard. So I use, if you're familiar with the work of Esther Hicks and the teachings of Abraham, she has something she uses called an emotional guidance system. And she talks about emotions being a vibration, which they are. Every emotion has
I say they're energy in motion.
Absolutely. You know, you can tell with your significant other, you know, when they walk into the room, how they feel without even really looking at them. You just feel it.
Right. Right.
And so I have them use this emotional guidance system, where if you put it in Google, it probably would pop up for you. And it's the emotions, the main emotions, I want to say there's about 21 of them or so, listed in vibrational order. And so I would have people use that as a template initially to say, okay, how am I feeling? Okay, I'm feeling worried right now. And you find where worried is. So you've identified it, right? Then you can back it up and go, okay, what happened before? What was I thinking, or what was I doing? And it could be as simple as, you know, you were at the grocery store and somebody walked by you that looked like someone who caused you pain in the past. It could have been that simple. It could be that something triggered a thought pattern and you started thinking about, I don't know, paying your mortgage or whatever it was. And so then identifying, if you can, you know, what just happened, what was I thinking? And then taking a moment, and I tell people at that point, you take a breath and you ask yourself these 3 questions. What would I rather think? What would I rather feel? And what would I rather do? And in psychology, we call this reframing.
Oh, reframing. Can you just say that again? I think that's really important. Let's repeat.
Yeah. Yep. So it's reframing, and it's asking yourself and identifying, what would I rather feel? What would I rather think? And what would I rather do? So sometimes I use this analogy, and women can relate to this and they'll always remember it. I use the analogy FAT, F-A-T. And it's, what would I rather feel? How would I rather act? And what would I rather think? Right. So it's in a different order, but it's a good acronym to remember those questions. And then when you do that, you start to reframe. You say, you know what, I was worried and I would rather feel content. Say I just pick contentment, because say that's a couple up on that list. In order to feel content, what do I need to think? That, you know, maybe I need to be present moment. In this present moment, everything is good. I have plenty of money, all is well. And then what does that lead me to do? And so maybe that next action is, I'm going to send a few emails to some potential clients. Maybe I'm just going to go talk to a friend. Maybe I feel like I need to be in nature, and what's going to really help, ground me in contentment is taking a walk, whatever that might be. And you know yourself best for that. Right. And so then every time that chatter comes up, every time you notice a drop in feelings, and it's work, self-development is work. Mm-hmm. The more that you do that reframing, the more different neurons will fire. And the neurons that fire together wire together. So in essence, what you're doing is you're taking all this bundle of neurons that has this old pattern of thought, and every single time you become aware that that's not working, it's like it short circuits a little bit. And then the more you reframe, that bundle starts to disassociate from each other, and then new bundles form. And so it becomes now a habit for you to think in the new way rather than the old way. But first and foremost, you have to be aware. I mean, self-awareness is truly the basis of everything. Right. Self-awareness and emotions are really the two concrete blocks that are at the bottom of all of this. And so that helps with the chatter. Sometimes writing them down too, getting them out of your head onto a piece of paper, and you could do little rituals. You could burn it, you could freeze it, you could flush them down the toilet, whatever you want to do. Right. But anything that you can do to become aware of them and then reframe it is really the key.
Right. Because if you're not aware, then you just become kind of robotic in your reactions, and unfortunately it becomes the habit that you live with, and it becomes your behavior and your character. And you're right, self-awareness is very critical, especially when those of us who are trying to, or are working at pivoting, starting a new business, we have a lot of that inner critic. And it is great to reframe, because when you're working on changing, when you're shifting, you have a lot of, it could be from your past. It could be, like you said, it triggers something that you remembered, that someone said that you there's no way you can do that, whatever the case might be. Mm-hmm. But if you're not aware of what's happening and why you're feeling that way, then there's no way to address it, because every time you start, it stops you, and you pull back and you go, okay, I can't do that, because there's the can't. I was always brought up with the belief that there is no such word as can't, but a lot of individuals aren't brought up that way, and they're saying that this is who you are, and this is as good as you're going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So that's wonderful, because I love those tools that we can, pause and become, in the pause is when we become aware. And now I love the FAT acronym. So that's really, really helpful. I appreciate that. As women, where do we most lose our power? Now, this is really interesting, because I think we do have a tendency to lose our power, but I would love to hear what your take on it is.
So power is an interesting thing, and there's different words for it. It could be energy. It could just be, when you're noticing when your feelings drop, because that's really the first clue that you've lost your power, is that drop in feeling immediately. Mm-hmm. And so from what I know, me personally, as well as the hundreds, if not thousands of women that I have talked to, there's a few areas, I think, as females where we lose power often. And one of them is seeking approval. We lose our power to others because we want their approval, whether that be parents, whether that be significant others, sometimes it's our children. Right. Sometimes it is, other women at work or a boss. We lose power quite a bit there. We also lose power in love. A lot of women. That romantic feeling, we give a lot of our power away there. And, I want to back up and really kind of define power, because sometimes that word is loaded. People think it's the power that means that you're controlling others and that you have something over somebody else. And that's really not what we're talking about. When we're talking about power in this sense and losing your power, we're talking about that innate sense of courage and who you are. When we talked earlier about being in alignment, it's like you willingly let go of that alignment and having that alignment for the purpose of something else that maybe is not as good for you. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about losing our power.
Right.
And women, we lose power to each other quite often. And, this goes into the whole conversation too, around us supporting each other. But, as women, we feed each other power, but then at the same time, I also see that it's where we lose power to other women, whether we're intimidated by them, whether it's those little mind chatter monkeys that are saying, well, she has something I don't, and we're coming from a place of lack, and we
Right.
think that a certain number of women can make it to the top, which is not true. But those areas too, we lose our power too as women to our thoughts. That mind chatter, every single time you give into that, you're losing your power to thoughts. I mean, we lose our power to thoughts, to people, to places, to things. And thoughts is a big one, losing power really in essence to yourself.
Right.
And the lies that you're telling yourself.
Right.
And believing those lies, and you've lost power. And again, the way you've lost power is your feelings drop. You all of a sudden just, you're feeling bad about yourself. Like, a few moments before, the day before, you were feeling really good and confident. And all of a sudden now, like today, I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling worried.
Mm-hmm.
I feel insecure. Okay, what then has happened? You have to be almost a little sleuth in your own life of kind of
Right.
figuring
I would say you have to be a big sleuth in your life. I mean,
it's like, where do these dots connect? And
right.
What were the triggers, and what are my patterns, and knowing where your buttons are with other people. Cause that's how we lose power to others, is they press a button.
Right.
My kids do this a lot. As much as I love my daughters, those closest to us know our buttons, and they press a button.
Yeah.
So it's my choice whether or not I choose to lose power when they press a button. I could choose to lose power and lose it on them, or I can go, yeah, you know what? That button's broke.
Not going to happen today. Yeah,
it's not working today.
Well, it's a good lesson to know. I mean, all of this boils down to, being aware, because if you know that that's what they're doing, even when we're attempting to build a business as well, all of those things, we just want to be on. It's like you said, you are a sleuth in your own life, and probably a really big one, because those are the things that are going to help us change and shift. All of these reframing and these awareness and being just the knowledge that, we do have the power within us to do those changes. It's just, for first and foremost, being aware. And then, like you said, you've given us some great tools to do that. Is it possible to make a statement or two to connect the reasons why women become entrepreneurs and what that reveals about their perspective and their potential? I'm fascinated by this question.
Great question. So, I think women, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. My dissertation for my PhD was actually around women entrepreneurs. So I had the privilege and blessing of interviewing some amazing women for that project. And all of them were entrepreneurs. And what I was studying at the time was more, hey, I want to hear about your experiences as a women entrepreneur and your perceptions. And so one of the things that came up when I asked the question, why did you leave the corporate environment and become an entrepreneur? What was the driving force?
Right.
And hands down for all of them, the driving force was, I felt that working on my own, I had more ability and more control over reaching that potential and fulfilling my purpose. So a lot of them use the term purpose, that I built my business around what I felt my purpose was, that thing that brings me joy. Right. And I found that thing brought me joy, and I felt stifled by that in what I was doing before. So therefore, being an entrepreneur, I felt like that now I have the vehicle. I can create what vehicle I want to drive in to get to that purpose and that potential, and be more in control of it without having someone else, dictate to me what I need to be doing every day. They also felt that they had more of that freedom. When you step into entrepreneurship, especially as a woman, because we're a minority in that space, And hopefully that won't be for much longer. And that is
Right.
definitely growing.
Mm-hmm.
But when we step into that space, it takes courage. It takes that risk. It takes what we talked about before, stepping into that, oh, I have that fear and this is uncomfortable. And there's that huge, huge unknown. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens when you start to step into those things that will get you closer to that potential, such as being an entrepreneur and stepping into that? Because I do believe that when you do that, you literally are stepping on the road to, okay, I've got this. You know, it's a testament for you of saying, I have faith in myself, I trust myself that I can do this. And what
Right.
happens is doors start to open. You know, you know you're on that right path of going towards that human potential and that purpose. And entrepreneurs are set up perfectly to do this because synchronicities line up. You know you're in alignment because things just start to appear. You feel like you think it, and then all of a sudden it manifests. It's that quick.
Right.
You meet people that you never would have met before that happen to have the skill that you're looking for, that you need in order to help you reach that potential. You know, you notice relationships change,
Mm-hmm.
and that is on both sides. Relationships that maybe you've had for a while fall away, and then new relationships enter. And so that whole space starts to shift. And in essence, what you're doing is you're attracting people to you that are in more alignment
Mm-hmm.
with what you're vibrating and where you want to go. And as an entrepreneur, it is a lot easier to do that. We get so caught up when we are not an entrepreneur. And this is not bashing corporate whatsoever, because there are some great employers out there that allow folks to feel like an entrepreneur in their job. And there's
Right.
hopefully people listening that have that. And the key to that, and you don't need to be an entrepreneur to be able to find your potential, but the key is to be doing something in a way where you feel that you have that alignment and you have that ability to sway and shift when you need to, when
Right.
something doesn't feel right. And so as entrepreneurs, we obviously have a little bit more of that freedom, but again, it doesn't mean it can't happen, in other forms of employment as well.
Right. Right. I find that it's in a lot of cases you can be more authentic when you're an entrepreneur, and
Mhm.
not, maybe just depending on the corporation, certain things don't come together. So yeah, I really think that that's really fascinating. Those who feel as if they want to explore more of who they really have the potential to be will step out of their comfort zone and try the entrepreneurial
Yeah.
route. So I find that
Yeah.
that's really interesting. As women supporting other women, what do we have to let go of, and what do we have to accept or allow in our belief system and our thoughts and our feelings in order to support other women living fully in their potential? I think you may have touched a little bit on
Yeah.
this, but that's a really good question.
Yeah, and I even took some notes on this before this, because it was one of those things I started to think of, because there's always things when you step into a new space that you have to let go of and that you have to allow in. And that's that whole giving and receiving. And so as women, we are very good at giving.
Mm-hmm.
And the receiving part is the part where we tend to need some work. And it's not all of us, but that's a common theme I found with women. We tend to be our own worst enemy when it comes to this. So, first thing, we'll focus on the letting go first. The biggest thing is letting go of those limiting beliefs, and really taking charge of that mind chatter we talked about, and identifying what are those thoughts that are running my behaviors, that are holding me back, that have not worked up to this point, and that I continue to hold on to just because they're comfortable. And we tend to do that. We tend to hold on to those things that we know aren't good for us just because we know how to handle it. So, I use the example sometimes. I have a family member who only can function in chaos.
Wow.
And they grew up in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the type of family environment that they had and the times that they grew up in. And so there was just constant chaos, and you become comfortable, and that becomes your norm, and you know how to deal with that. And so what happens is, if we don't evolve past some of that, and we don't let go of that belief, is that, this person creates chaos when there is not chaos, because she needs that environment in order to know how to function. It's comfortable for her. And even though it's like, yeah, I know this is not good for me, it's high blood pressure, stress, all of this,
Right.
The unknown is sometimes more fearful. Even if you know the unknown is there, it's sometimes more fearful. So we stay in those stuck patterns. So
right.
identifying,
it's the drama. I call it the drama world.
It is that drama world.
To me, it's draining, but I do know an individual like you who lives in that realm. And I'm just like, why are you creating the drama? It's not even there. Just let it go. Well, what do you mean? I'm not creating drama. Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Again, it's that awareness, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's hard because some people, just like you said, they're not aware, but they're not aware at all. Like, they don't even understand. And I guess they need a lot of help, but whatever.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us to the next part too, as women, is that realizing that everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah.
And we don't know the lessons that soul is supposed to learn. And so the person, say, who is caught up in that drama and lives in chaos and just no matter what doesn't see it, they may have chosen that life and that specific circumstance because there's a lesson they need to learn, that they need to pull out of that. And so letting go of judgment and letting go of comparing even ourselves to others, because there is no journey that is as important as that own journey that you have, because the change starts in.
I love that. Can you say that again, Chris?
There's no guy. I got to say it exactly the same way now. No. There's no journey that's more important than the journey that is to ourselves and within, and our own journey, because that really is key, and this is important for these times that we're in too, Jane, is we could easily look at the external environment and we could easily say, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be, as entrepreneurs, I'm not going to be able to do my business. Look at this that's going on, and this that's going on, and this, and it's going to affect this and this. No, because that's not how it works. Right. I can't look in a mirror. If I look in a mirror, I cannot make my reflection in the mirror smile unless I'm smiling. And it starts with me. Right. And so if you think about your business, since we have entrepreneurs on the call here, and anything in your life, if you want something external to change, if you want that reflection in the mirror to change, it has to start with you. The impetus is you. So it doesn't matter what's going on out there. Right. You have to let go of the belief that the external is affecting the internal. It doesn't go that way. It's you creating what you want and saying, I want the reflection in the mirror to be smiling, and holding a bag of money, like whatever you want, whatever suits your fancy. And what do you need to do then internally? What do you need to shift? What do you need to believe? Who do you need to be? That is where the work starts. And it's allowing in those beliefs. So that's one of the allowing, but letting go of the limiting beliefs and what we've been taught, because we've been taught a lie. It is not the external that affects the internal. We're the ones, it's that cause and effect. You want to affect the cause is how you want it to go. You don't want something to happen and a cause have an effect. You want it to be the other way around. So, right.
And therein lies the action. But I love that analogy about looking in the mirror. And if you want to be smiling, you have to do the smiling. It's not just going to appear. Mm-hmm. That's so, right. I love that picture that you painted. Really, really great. So Chris, you have a wonderful saying on your site, and I just wanted to read it to our audience, and maybe you can address that as we wrap things up here. But I love this, what you put. You put, change your role, your situation, the people that surround you, but never change who you are. It kind of speaks for itself, but what what was inside you when you wrote that?
So a lot of that came from discussions I have with people after we do an assessment. And so, as an organizational psychologist, I love assessments to the point where I'm probably a geek with them. But a lot of folks will take those assessments and then they walk away with, I'm not good in this, but I'm good in this. So here's my strengths, here's my challenges. And they immediately, and this is where human nature immediately goes to, I've got to fix the challenges. I've got to make these better. And I started to kind of notice a pattern with people when they did that, and would start the conversations with them kind of in line with what we've been talking about around, when you're in alignment. You're in best alignment when you're working with those strengths and when you're working with those things you love to do and those things that bring you joy. None of us were made and brought here to be good at everything. That goes back to that tennis ball and that unique potential that you bring, that tennis ball being the vehicle, and how can I feed it, to push this potential out there. And when I say, never change yourself, change the role, the situation, the people around you, is that it comes back to knowing who you are and standing strong in that, and being able to say, I'm really great with this, but I'm not so great with this. And so, for example, in my business, I know the things I'm good at, and those are the things I want to spend time on: the speaking, the research, the writing. I love all of that stuff. It comes very natural. The things that don't, I hate the financial aspect. I'll make the money, but can someone else do something else with it for me? Doing all the accounting. Yeah, like could I take a class and figure out, can I be a QuickBooks person and figure out, how to invest it and all the great things to do? Sure. But here's the thing, does not ignite my soul. It is not a strength of mine. And the best I probably could get if I spent all of that time and effort in learning about it would be average. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want somebody average touching my money and doing my books.
No.
Right. And so knowing that, I want to stay true to who I am over here. And then when I say change the people, the situation, the role, I'm going to hire some people that are really good at that. I've got some really good people who take care of that for me, who love it. It's their strength. They get jazzed by it. They're in alignment with it. I want those people doing it because they're going to do it great, where I'm going to just do it average. We sometimes find ourselves, and a lot, this goes back to the question of the women who have become entrepreneurs and have left corporate. Sometimes it's changing your role and changing, like I feel that whether it's your role in a relationship, your role in a specific job, whatever it might be, sometimes it's your role in your family that you play. And women do this often. I'm the fixer, I'm the healer, I'm the one that, does everything. And that's very draining, but it's changing the role, not who you are. And again, it goes back, see, all this is tied together. It goes back to losing your power. All of those things are really tied together. And so really kind of understanding where you're coming from and who you are, and being grounded in that, and saying, this person who I've known, I have a friend I've known for 40 years, love her to death. She will always be a friend of mine. But over the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't been as close. Something about the relationship shifted. It was not mutually feeding each other's soul as it used to. Our vibrations were different. We still love each other. We honor each other. But again, that's an example of kind of changing the people in your life. So we just don't talk as often. We still stay in touch. But instead of hanging on to that, because it's like, well, we've always been besties. We've always been this. Like, that's wrong to let that go. No, it's not. People, places, and things have their time and purpose. Some are here for a chapter in our life. Some are here for a season. Some are here for a lifetime. Some are just here for a day. And being able to go with that flow, but stay in your own power and being true and honoring who you are and that authentic self. And knowing, again, it starts with me. And it starts with that inner journey. And I have the creative ability to change any of those things around me. That way I stay in alignment with my path.
Well, Well, that's a wonderful explanation, and I said it's a great saying that you have on your website. Now, I just have a couple of final questions that may throw you for a loop, but I love to put these out there. The first one is, if you were an epic story, what would the title be?
If I were an epic story,
What would the
wow,
title be?
what would the title be? I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. What
That would be my title.
That's fabulous. It's fabulous. What name would you give your character in the epic story?
You know, I would just be who I am. She would be Christine, is who she would be. You know, because that is who I am. That's who I relate to, and who better to be in the story about me and my epic journey. Right?
That's perfect. And how would you characterize your epic life?
How would I characterize my epic life?
In your epic story.
How would I characterize it? I would characterize it as the story of a woman who was walking her path authentically and with power.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. One more. And if you had one epic superpower, what would it be and why?
An epic superpower. If I could wave a magic wand and have the power to have everybody realize and see the divineness within them and the potential they really had, I would do that in an instant. Because then with that self-awareness and realization, we would all realize our true potential, and the path to getting to that ultimate potential would be so much easier for everyone.
That's beautiful. I love it. That is so giving. That really is. That's beautiful. Well, those were my questions. And where can everybody find you, Chris, and your book? And if there is anything particular that you would like to speak on, please, let's uncover it right now.
Oh, sure. Well, super simple. My website is just chrissopa.com. Anywhere on the website, you can find an area to sign up to be on my mailing list. So you'll get my blogs and my articles and newsletters and any events that I might be speaking at as well. From signing up for that, you get a free ebook that I've written on changing your behaviors. And a lot of the things we've talked about today are in that ebook. So you'll get that when you sign up as well. Yeah, and then just, you know, connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm always putting some really great nuggets out there, and then connections and some of the things some of my great colleagues and friends share as well.
Yes, and she does put out great information, everyone. I have to tell you, I've been reading her blogs and looking at it, and just, you got to check it out. It's great.
Yeah.
We will have all of the links on Chris's bio in the speaker pages. So if you didn't catch everything, you're welcome to go there and check it out. And I would just like to say thank you, Chris, Dr. Chris, so much for coming on and sharing your brilliance with the world and our audience. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, everyone check out Chris's site and her blog. She's amazing. And thank you so much for all the information. I really appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. It was my honor. And thank you so much for thinking of me. I love doing interviews like this because it helps move us all forward. So thank you, Jane, for what you do and offering this to everybody.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so grateful that you're on. Thank you so much. And everyone, be sure to check out the pages, and we'll see you next time on the Epic Vision Zone. Thank you.